Time passed, students. Let us take 2 minutes, more minutes, 2 more minutes. I will wait. Everyone, please confirm whether I am audible or not. Please write in the chat box. Okay, okay. Nice. So is this Galaxy A20? Try to enter the meeting by using your name or roll number. I am able to see only the Galaxy, the phone name. In the next class onwards, please try to enter the meeting by using your roll number and name. Okay, right. I will start the class. Okay, in the last class, we discussed something, a topic called as, what is the topic as yesterday's topic? Can anyone answer in the chat box? Anyone? In the chat box, try to answer the question. That is, what is the yesterday's topic?
Java features.
Java features. Okay, nice. Okay, today we are going to see the next topic and important topic to know why Java is more efficient than the other programming languages. That is, difference between the previous languages like C, C++, and to the present language, that is Java language. So let me share this screen. Okay. Yeah. So today's topic, that is C versus Java. Once all of you unmute your audio, please put your audio into mute and please make yourself visible onto the video. Unmute your video, all of you. All of you, please unmute yourself. Not the audio, video. Only video. I want to see who are the students. Everyone, please switch on your video. Okay. Roll number 17. Okay. Who is this? Roll number 9. Ashok. Okay. 5 Ashok. Who is this? Roll number 9. Swatika. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Next. Let us continue the class. Okay. Leave it. Nice. Today's topic is C++ versus Java. Are you able to see the screen? Right in the chat box.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. So we will see first the differences between the C++ and Java. I think most of you know what exactly C++ will contain. C++ has both the features of structured oriented language or procedural oriented language along with the object oriented language. Most of you know, I think in the last semester you have learned about C++, some of them are some features. Now I'm showing you some of the differences to the screen. That is first point. You try to see this first point under C++. That is C++ is not a purely object-oriented language. Since it is possible to write a C++ program without using a class or an object. Yes, you can write the C++ programs without usage of classes also. So that is one of the basic thing which will happen with C++. You can write with the class and without class also in C++. And in Java, coming to Java, the first point it is mentioned as it is purely an object-oriented programming language. Since it is not possible to write a Java program without using at least one class. So it means that you cannot write a Java program without the usage of a single class. At least there must be a single class should be there in your Java program. Without class, you cannot write any program in Java. Whereas C++, you can write a program with and without classes also. So that is a one difference which is part of C++ and Java. Now coming to the second point, it is mentioned as pointers are available in C++. And coming to Java, pointers are not available in Java. We cannot create and use pointers in Java, but they have references. In Java, we call them as references. Instead of pointers, we will be using references, but they are not actually called as pointers. In C++, we have pointers. In Java, we don't have pointers, but instead of them, we will be using a terminology called as references. Next, the third point, it is mentioned as allotting memory and deallocating memory is the responsibility of the programmer, whereas in C++. In C++, it is mentioned as allocating and deallocating of memory is the responsibility of the programmer to look after that one. When you are creating a memory, a dynamic memory or any memory by using operators like new operator, I think most of you know that new operator is available in C++, which will create a memory. When compared to C language, we will be using memory allocation method, malloc. Most of you know that one. Now in C++, allocating and deallocating memory is the responsibility of the programmer. Why it is said as Deallocating is that it is the responsibility of the programmer because it does not have any automatic strategy to delete the memory which has been created by the programmer. It does not have the feature of automatic deletion of the memory. I will give an example. That is, if you create a variable in the memory, it is used for a time being, and after the time being, the memory has to be released. So the programmer has to write a code to delete that memory. If you are not deleting that memory, the memory will be wastage. So next, coming to Java, allocation and deallocation of memory will be taken care by the JVM. So there is a strategy, that is allocation and deallocation of memory will be taken care by the JVM. JVM is whole and sole responsible for allocating and deallocating of memory in Java. So there is an automatic strategy is there. Java will be using such kind of a strategy where memory will be released automatically. So no programmer involvement will be there. Programmer is free from releasing the memory. He is not responsible for that. Whereas in C++, programmer is whole and sole responsible for memory creation and deletion. Now in Java, there is no strategy of the programmer or no involvement of the programmer to allocate or deallocate the memory. Next point, it has been mentioned that C++ has goto statement. In the last class, we discussed that goto statement is available in C++, but it will create one kind of a confusion in the program, that from which control of the program is shifted to which control. The control shifting of the program nature will be in confusing manner. So C++ has that goto statement, whereas in Java, it does not have goto statement. So JavaSoft people has omitted such kind of a topic called as goto statements in Java. Next, coming to C++, that is multiple inheritance feature is available in C++. So what is inheritance? Anyone can answer or write in the chat box what is inheritance and how many types of inheritance are available in C++. Anyone can answer this question either by unmuting themselves or write in the chat box. Anyone, please try to answer this one. What is inheritance and how many types of inheritance are available in C++? Are you able to hear me? Everyone? Hello? Students? Hello? Okay, nice. Sai Priya is telling that the parent class and subclass, that is child class. Okay, nice. What exactly a parent class contain? What exactly a subclass will contain? Yes, you are saying that there is a parent class and a subclass. But what is parent class and what is subclass? Okay, let me answer this one, I think. Okay, inheritance is a concept where you can reuse. The reusability of a code is major advantage of inheritance. Inheritance is used in C++ for a particular purpose. Wherever inheritance is available, the purpose of inheritance is one thing, that is reusability of the code wherever it is possible. Let us say that we are using as Sai Pallavi or some person who told that one. Yeah, Sai Priya. Sai Priya told that there is a parent class and a subclass. Yes, parent class will contain some properties which can be inherited into another class the inherited properties which are stored into one class, that class is called as a subclass, which is nothing but a child class. So these are all, this is about inheritance. But now we are discussing about, now there is a point mentioned here in C++, that is multiple inheritance feature is available in Java, in C++. Why it is mentioned only multiple inheritance? Because there are other inheritances are also available there. But why we are specifying C multiple inheritance? So when coming to Java, this multiple inheritance, that is there are two parent classes will be there in multiple inheritance, and there is one subclass. So that subclass will get properties from the two parent classes. So this is what we call it as multiple inheritance. But this multiple inheritance will create one kind of a illogical differences in Java, or there is some kind of a problem with the multiple inheritance in Java. So there is a conflict between the two parent classes. So that's why the multiple inheritance has been omitted in Java. And by omitting multiple inheritance, but also it can be achieved. So it is not totally deleted. It means that it can be achieved. It means that multiple inheritance is available, but it is not directly available in Java. It can be achieved by using some kind of topic called as interfaces. When we discuss about interfaces, then we can across the multiple inheritance in Java. Now coming to the next point, I want to clarify in this, multiple inheritance feature is available in C++ and no multiple inheritance in Java, but there is a means to achieve it by using interfaces. Okay. Next, I will proceed to the next point. Next thing is, operator overloading is available in C++, but it is not available in Java. Why operator overloading is not available? Because operator is one kind of a topic where the Java is not advanced to it. Operators overloading are done only when two objects have to be communicated. Let us say that if one object is trying to copy the contents or properties of it into another object, then there is one kind of a operator is used in between those objects. Then that operator has to be overloaded, whereas in C++. But Java, there is no difficult aspects are there in Java. There is no operator overloading and there is no usage of operator overloading in Java. Next, there are three access specifiers in C++, that is public, private, and as well as protected. Now in Java, it supports 4 access specifiers along with those 3 which are available in C++. Along with that, there is one added feature, that is a default access specifier. We will come across this default access specifier when we going on in the subject while we do some of the programs. Next, there are constructors and destructors are available in C++. But in Java, only constructors are there in Java, no destructors are available in this language. Why destructors are not available in Java? Because JVM will automatically release the memory which has been created by the constructors. So that's why only constructors are available, not the destructors in Java. So this is about some of the differences which will differentiate between C++ and Java. So from the starting class onwards, I'm saying that there is one kind of a JVM is there. JVM will look after everything. JVM will release the memory. JVM will manage the memory. So what exactly a JVM is? We will see the topic called as JVM in the next slide. That is Java Virtual Machine. So this is an important topic. One thing to be sure, JVM is system dependent. Everyone must be noted that JVM is system dependent. but Java program is platform independent. Try to understand this one. Java bytecode, what we call as Java bytecode. What is bytecode? When we compile the source code of Java, we will get a file called as .class file. That is a file which contains a bytecode. That is platform independent. That file, that code is platform independent, but JVM is system dependent. Every operating system will have its own JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Let us say that I have an operating system Windows 10 with me. If you have an operating system in your PC like Linux, so there may be different JVMs in different operating systems. But bytecode which is to be executed is platform independent. It means that bytecode can be executed in Windows or Linux. So this is what deals with the JVM. Now, what is JVM actually? JVM is nothing but Java Virtual Machine, and what exactly it does. So it is mentioning that Java Virtual Machine is the heart of entire Java program execution process. It means that without JVM, we cannot execute a program of Java. And it is a specification that provides a runtime environment in which Java bytecode can be executed. So where we can encounter this JVM and where we can see this JVM, we will see the JVM at the running of a Java program, running time of a Java program. Say most of the C++ programs will be two stages, yes or no? First we will compile them, then we will run them. Similarly, here also we will compile the source code of Java, and after that we will run the Java program. So at running stage of a Java program, this JVM will be encountered. That's why it is said as runtime environment in which Java bytecode can be executed. So you can see the next point. It is mentioned as JVMs are available for many hardware and software platforms. So what it is mentioned? Just now I told you that every PC which contains same operating system or different operating system, it is JVM will be different. They are independent. They are dependent on particular PC machine. Depending upon the processor, the JVM will be acting. So JVMs are processor centric. We can say that. So every PC cannot have the same processor. I think if they have also, and a different JVM will be available for that PC itself. So it is clear that in the last point, it is stated that JVMs are platform centric or system dependent, but Java programs are platform independent. So it is clear from this point. Next, what it does, actually what JVM will do. So it will load the code, it verifies the code, it executes the code, and it provides the runtime environment. It will run the code, loads the code, verifies the code, executes the code, and it will provide us an running environment of that program. So what is this code here? Loads the code, verifies the code, executes the code. What is code exactly here? The code here represents the bytecode. The compiled version of Java source program is denoted here something like code. So bytecode will be loaded, it can be verified, and it can be executed. So it will be done by JVM. All the things are done by the JVM. Now let us see what exactly the JVM will contain. The architecture of the JVM is something looking like this, which is very much interesting. You can see several sections in JVM. First of all, you can see left hand side, there is a name is denoted as class files. And there is one kind of a block which is mentioned as class loader subsystem. So whenever you want to execute a Java program, first stage of the process is you have to compile the Java source code. That is, filename.java will be compiled first. After that compilation, we will get .class file. That class file will be taken by the class loader subsystem. So what does it do? Class loader subsystem, what does it do? It loads the classes into different parts of the memories. These are the memories which are created by the JVM. So this is an architectural diagram where you can see there are different sections. First part is, it is mentioned as class loader subsystem. The second part is denoted as runtime data areas. And on the left side, it is mentioned as execution engine, which contains JIT compiler. Yesterday we discussed about it. That is just-in-time compiler. And it will contain a garbage collector along with interpreter. As we know, Java is interpreted as well as compiled language. And there is a connection between this execution engine to native method interface. Now, what does it deal with? Native method libraries, native method interface. We will come to this each part in the next slide. Now, coming to, first of all, you observe that class loader subsystem will take .class files as input. Okay. You try to understand here, class loader subsystem will take class files as input to its system and it will be loaded into the memories. Now let us see one by one. So what exactly class loader subsystem will do? In JVM, there is a module called class loader subsystem which performs the following functions. First of all, it loads the .class file into memory. Then it verifies whether all bytecode instructions are proper or not. If it finds any instruction suspicious, then the execution is rejected immediately. If the byte instructions are proper, then it allocates necessary memory to execute the program. The simple job of the class loader subsystem is that loads the .class file into the memory and it verifies, and then it verifies all the bytecode instructions. If it is proper, then allocate the memory, otherwise reject the execution of that bytecode. This is the purpose of class loader subsystem. Then coming to, from class loader subsystem, it is allocated to, if it is the instructions are proper, then it will enter into the memory. Now that memory is divided into 5 parts called as runtime data areas, which contains the data and results while running the program. These are as follows. The 5 parts of the memory are, first one is, are you able to hear me? Anyone? Vamshi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I lost the connection. Okay, right. Very good. Let us continue with this. That is the memory, which is divided into 5 parts. First part is method area. Now, what happened in this method area? So, method area is the memory block which stores the class code, code of the variables, code of the methods in the Java program. So whatever class codes are available in Java program, whatever variables are available in Java program, whatever methods are available in Java, those are allocated memory in this method area. Next, second memory block, that is heap. Heap is nothing but It is one kind of a memory area where we see most of the objects will be created here. Now, what is an object? The instance of a class or the physical entity of a class is called as an object. So every object needs some memory. So that memory will be allocated in the heap. Heap is one kind of a memory place where objects will be stored. Only objects will be stored. So this is the area where objects are created. Whenever JVM loads a class, a method and a heap area are immediately created in it. Whenever JVM loads a class, a method and a heap area are immediately created in it. Next, coming to Java stack. While running a method, it needs some more memory to store data and results. This memory is allocated on Java stack. Let us say that if one method is going to be executed in Java program, let us say that the memory is fixed at that particular instance of time. But we need more memory for that variable to execute. So at that moment of time, we need extra memory. So how it can be managed? It can be managed in the Java stacks. That is dynamic memory creation, we say it. What we say it as? Dynamic memory creation. We call it as dynamic memory creation. When we are running any method at that instance of time, we are generating a memory or extending the memory. It is called as dynamic memory. So for that kind of concept, we need Java stacks. Java stacks are used to hold such kind of memory, extra memory. Next, there is one more topic called as program counter registers. Now, what are these? These are registers. Registers are memory devices which will hold the instructions which are going to be executed. Let us say that if you have 3 methods, there may be 3 PC registers will be available to track the instruction. It means that every method, let us say that add method contains 4 lines of code. So to execute these 4 lines of code, a program counter will be initiated to that method, pointed to that method. So to that method, there is a link controlled here. So program counter will execute statements, will transfer the instructions for the execution. For example, if there are 3 methods, there are 3 PC registers will be used to track the instructions of the method. Next, the last one, native method stacks. So what exactly these native method stacks are? Native method stacks are native methods. Native are nothing but what we can say this, let us say that in olden days we have forefathers, grandfathers like this. So what we can say, there are some kind of a roots will be there. Even though if you are present in current situation, you will be following with some kind of a roots which have been followed by your family. So if you are working according to the present trend, also you are following your rituals and your traditions. Similarly, Java is the latest trend which has been developed for developing web applications also, but they will not lose the roots of it. Where does it come from? So C, C++ are the native methods. So inside JVM, there will be some concepts which will be utilized from C, C++ also. So such kind of things will be available in native method stacks, and it will be connected to the JVM through native method interface. In the diagram, you can observe here, there is one kind of a native method interface is available over here, which connects runtime data areas and which connects the execution engine. And it will deal with the libraries. Libraries are nothing but which includes header files and function details if your Java program internally uses the concepts of C or C++. That's why we say them as native method interface. So which C or C++ libraries can be accessed in Java programs also. So I think it is clear, Java virtual machine. If you have any doubts, please raise the hands or write in the chat box, because the meeting is going to end within 1 minute. We have 1.5 minutes. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Okay. Make it fast. Those who have doubts, please write something onto the chat box so that I can clarify the doubts. Anyone, please try to answer. Respond. Anyone, those who have doubts regarding JVM. Okay. See, if you have any doubts, when we come across in the next class, if it is possible, I will try to execute one Java program, a sample program, then you can understand what exactly JVM is going to do. Okay. So I can understand that everyone followed this topic. If it is yes, I will close this session because it is less than 1 minute. All of you, I will stop the share screen. All of you, please unmute video. Under video on చేసుకోండి sorry. For recording purpose, that's it. Nothing else.